Hey guys, I want to tell you all about a Galilean wedding. It had very unique wedding customs, and a Galilean wedding ties into the Bible quite a bit. I don't want to give everything away, but I want to tell you how a Galilean wedding is. That way, as you're reading the Bible and learning, you'll see a lot of things that ties in and is very, very similar to the way these wedding traditions are. All right, for their engagement, what would happen, what would take place is usually, say a man's walking down the street and he sees this little girl and she's very pretty and seems like she's smart, and he sits there and watches her for a bit and thinks she would be a good fit for her son when they get older. So he would find out who their father was or what family she came from, and he would send one of his servants out and go knock on the door and let him know, hey, so-and-so's requesting you for a feast. He wants you to come on over. So they would drop what they were doing at the time and take off and go meet this person. And as they're having a feast with them and talking to them, they start discussing, once they feel comfortable with each other, hey, I think your daughter will be a good fit for my son when she gets older, and I would like to have them wed later on. So what they'll do, if both of them thinks it's a good idea, they'll sit down and come up with a contract, an agreement. And as they're going over the things they want, say whether it be cattle or whatever it is, a lot of times they would have agreements on the price of the bride, the number of the children, what the gender of the children is going to be, what the bride's dowry is going to be. And as they're doing this, there's usually at least one scribe in the household or near about. They would get this scribe to sit down and listen to them, and everything that they agreed upon, they would write this contract up, and it was called a ketubah. All right, and this ketubah, they didn't have normal paper back then, right? So they would find anything they could to write it down on, whether it be a piece of pottery or rock or whatever it be. But they would make 2 copies of it, one for each father. Once they finally finished and came to an agreement and had these copies of this ketubah, which is their contract basically, each of them would take it and go their separate ways. And they would take that ketubah and store it in a sacred place, or where they usually keep their ceremonial things at in their home. All right, once they become of age, usually around 13, 14 years old, they would become betrothed. All right, at that point, it's legal binding, but they wasn't allowed to live together yet. All right, when that would happen, both the parents would pick a day, all right, and they knew what the date was at that time. But on the women's side, all the sisters, the mother and stuff would wake up the bride, cousins, whoever was staying with them, they would wake them up. And then on the groom's side, it would be the boys, cousins, brothers, and father. They would wake them up, and they would take them out for their ceremonial cleansing, which is called a mikvah. All right, this mikvah was for purification and renewal, and they would call it, another name for it was also being born again. All right, and it usually had rainwater. Most areas, what they would have, and you would see them a lot over in the Middle East, is there's kind of like a little, almost like a bath size, is about waist deep, that they could walk down these steps into this water, dunk themselves down. They would squat down and dunk their head all the way down, and that way it was fully submerged in water, and then they would come back up, and they would do that for purification and be holy for any time they would do any kind of ceremonial thing. That was kind of like that was the early baptism before John the Baptist came around. That's the way they used to purify themselves and become holy before they was allowed to enter the temples or do any ceremonies or anything like that. At home, and they would have a parade, and they would start parading out in the streets, and of course all the villages and stuff was small then, so all the townspeople heard them all making all this noise, banging on drums, blowing shofars and everything. So the town would come and gather together with them. And as they gathered together with them, they all just kept parading around the town, and the party just kept getting bigger and bigger. So everybody was joining in and following them. All right, the cities had a gate, so they didn't have a courtyard, so they would go outside the village gate, and everybody would follow them out there. Once they got out there, some of the brothers or close to kin, depending, I guess, on what kin they had there, which the families were usually pretty big back then. But these boys would follow them, usually from the groom's side. These boys would be carrying these poles with this cloth wrapped around them. And once they get out that city gate, they would stretch the poles out and make a hoopah. All right, this hoopah is basically all it is a canopy. All right, and the cloth they used for this hoopah was some of the best cloth that they owned. It's to represent the glory of God descending over top of their covenant, their agreement they're getting ready to make. After the hoopah would get set up, the bride and groom would go up under the hoopah. Once they get up under the hoopah, everybody that's around was witnesses, and they would shout amen. Then after they would shout amen, one of the fathers would have their agreement, that ketubah, and they would read it out loud in front of everybody. That way everybody there can hear it. All right, that way everybody knows, everybody's a witness of what that agreement of this couple coming together is. All right, as soon as he gets done reading that agreement, everybody yells amen. Then the price of the bride is brought in. So whatever the agreement was in that ketubah, the price of the bride is brought in, and then the father inspects it. And if he accepts everything, then everybody yells amen. Then after that, the dowry is brought in. All right, and then after the father inspects that, everybody yells amen. Then if everything's good with the ketubah, the contract, then the bride and the groom would exchange gifts. Usually if they're poor, it would be something like a coin, kind of like I can't remember what they call it, but it's kind of like a penny or whatever. But if they was more well off, then the gifts would be a little bit better. But whatever it was, they always cherished it because they knew it was from the heart and it meant something to them. But they would exchange gifts at that time, and once they done that, everybody would yell amen. Then the most scary part for the groom was coming up. He would get a pitcher with straight wine in there. It wasn't cut or anything. It was straight wine, and he would pour it in his cup, and then he would reach the cup to the bride. All right, at that point, he's real nervous. That's like the moment whether he's going to find out whether she's going to accept him or not. At that moment, she has an opportunity to reject him, and all she does is she puts her hands away and pushes the cup away if she rejects him. If that happens, of course, usually fights would break out at that point. Everybody's wondering, why is he not good enough for her, and yada yada. But whatever her reason is, nobody ever questions it. It's her personal reason, and it's nobody else's business, and they believe in never question it. It's her right to push him away at that point. So that's the only point really that the bride can say, no, I don't want to marry him. And it's called the cup of joy. So she pushes the cup of joy away. If she would accept that cup of joy, she would take a drink of it, a sip, and then everybody would yell amen. And then after that, she would pass the cup back to him, the groom, and the groom would take a drink of it, and all the witnesses would say amen, and that would seal the covenant. All right, for them, that is a physical and spiritually related until death. That covenant is binding. There's no getting out of that marriage at that point. They're pretty much bound together for the rest of their life, spiritually and physically. And after he would take a drink, they would say, you are now consecrated unto me by the laws of Moses and Israel, and I will not drink from this cup again until I drink it with you in my Father's house." And then all the witnesses yell, "Amen." Groom then hands the bride a veil, and she puts the veil on her face so you can only see her eyes, so it covers everything down, and it symbolizes her staying pure to the groom, and to let everybody else know that she's taken, not to approach her. She's done made a covenant for the groom. And then everyone yells, and after she puts the veil on, all the witnesses yell, "Amen." Then after that's finished, and both of them accept, and both of them drank from the cup of joy and said their piece, then they go on their separate ways, which sets in motion preparing for the wedding. Now the groom, to prepare for the wedding, would purchase materials so he can build onto his father's house. All right, the bride would buy quality garments and materials to make her wedding dress, and if she didn't have the money for it, she would trade things until she got enough material to make her dress, and she would trade things to get jewelry to be able to wear. And a lot of times it was usually about a year before the groom would come get the bride, but sometimes it would take up to 2 years or more before that would happen. But it was all based on the groom's father to when he said, "All right, son, it's time for you to go get your bride." All right, now everybody's preparing, even all the friends, family, and everybody's always preparing and getting ready for this wedding feast that's going to happen. All right, so once everyone's ready and prepared for the wedding, the groom has his addition built onto his father's house. Once the bride's got the dress and all the jewelry that she needs, and all the guests has their clothing and stuff that they're going to wear to the wedding, and once everybody knows they're prepared, everybody starts sleeping in their wedding clothes all the time, because they never know what day or hour that it's going to be called and the wedding's going to happen. So they got to stay prepared constantly. Now, if the groom's family is wealthy, the father will prepare white linen garments, robes, for all the guests as they come in. He would hand them out. All right, when it's time for the father to tell the son to go get his bride, he usually wakes him up in the middle of the night, usually around about midnight or so, or the wee hours of the morning. He'll wake him up and let the groom jump up to wake everybody else up. And the groom will get up and start waking everybody else up in the men's house. And the groom and his brothers and cousins and everybody, they'll start blowing horns, chauffeurs making loud noises, yelling. The bridegroom's coming to wake up the bride, company, and guests. And then they would start marching through the villages and start yelling that the bridegroom is coming, wake the bride up, and company and guests. And they was blowing their horns and beating on drums and just making a spectacle, that way everybody could hear. So whoever was invited to the wedding, as they hear it, that was basically their alarm clock. If they heard it, then they would get up and go join this parade and join in with them. But if they wasn't invited, then they would still celebrate and run around in the streets with them and stuff and yelling and making noise. All right, as they're marching around in town and making all this noise and ruckus, waking everybody up, it wakes the bride up, and that's basically her alarm clock to get up. As she wakes up, they have their wicks trimmed, their lamps ready, full with oil. The other women of the house help her touch up her makeup and everything real quick, and fix her henna on her hand, which is, if you don't know what that is, it's painting and symbols and stuff on your hand as well. And the reason, one of the reasons I think that the women had that back then is women's not supposed to work. They're not supposed to work with their hands. So I believe that's why the henna was on their hands. But anyway, they would wake up, they would get ready and everything just as quick as they can, and they would light their lamps, and they would carry bowls with them under their lamps and use them bowls to kind of block the wind too if it was a windy day. But the women with the bride and the bridesmaid would usually follow in a straight line and listen for the sound of where the groom was and the rest of the village making all the noise, and she would follow her way using her lamp to get to where he was. And once they came together and they ran into each other, and the groom seen the bride, they carried a chair with them. All right, and they would put the bride up on the chair and lift the chair up in the air, and that bride would ride on the chair as they would take her over to their father's house, all right, to the groom's father's house, and that was called flying to the father's house. Once they arrived there, and all the prepared guests arrived there as well, the doors were shut to the gate of the home. All right, and no one else was allowed in. Once everybody's at the groom's father's house, the groom will take a pouch of salt from each of the families. So he'll have a pouch of salt from his family and a pouch of salt from her family. And he'll take that salt and then dump it out onto a plate. So he dumps both of them pouches out, and then he takes his finger and just starts swirling it around. And he does that for a little while to make that salt all blended together so it can never be separated again, which signifies the bond between the groom and the bride, and then his family and their family together. That way it shows that nothing could ever separate them ever again. Once that's done, then he'll go grab the pitcher and the cup of joy that they use for the betrothal, and he'll fill that cup of joy up again with wine, and then both of them will drink from it again. Then after that, they usually go to the bridal chamber at that point and have their fun, and they come out and they keep celebrating for 7 days, 7 nights. So I hope you get something out of this. I'm pretty sure I'm almost guarantee you will. If you stick with reading the Bible, you'll see a lot of things that this will make sense in, and why some things are the way they are. But anyway, I hope this interested you, and y'all enjoyed it. And if y'all don't mind, hit like and subscribe. That way when I go post another videos, you'll get a notification that I got a new video uploaded. But God bless y'all. Hope y'all have a great day, and hope you enjoyed it.